She fell from the sky, and into his arms. The wind was cold. The sandstorm had passed, but the sky was still dark with smoke. Jalen walked through the wreckage of the old battlefield, wearing a mask over his face. He searched for scrap metal and power cells, hoping to trade them for food. This place was dangerous, but it was all he had. He moved carefully between broken ships and rusted weapons. The war between the aliens and the humans had ended years ago, but the dead machines still whispered of violence. Jalen had grown up here alone. His parents were gone. His sister was taken when he was just a boy. He remembered nothing else. Then he heard something strange, a soft cracking noise, metal twisting. Then a scream. He looked up. From the sky, a body fell, fast and spinning, like a broken star. It crashed into the ground just a few meters away from him, hitting with a deep thud. Jalen ran toward it without thinking. Dust covered the shape, but as he got closer, he saw it was a person. Not human. It was an alien girl. She was young, maybe his age. Her skin was pale with a soft glow, her armor cracked and sparking. Strange. Blue fluid leaked from her side. Her breathing was weak. She looked up at him, eyes wide, glowing with light. And then she said something that made Jalen freeze. She whispered his name. Jalen. He dropped to his knees beside her. How do you know my name? He asked. She smiled faintly, then her body collapsed against him. Her weight was light, almost too light, and her skin felt cold like stone. Jalen didn't know what to do. He looked around. No one else was nearby. No ships in the air. Just silence and dust. He picked her up carefully. He took her to his shelter, a small bunker under the sand, hidden inside an old cargo container. It wasn't much, just a bed, a solar, heater, and supplies. He laid her down and closed the door behind them. The girl was still breathing, but just barely. He checked her wounds. Her armor was burned through. Something sharp had cut her near the ribs. He cleaned the wound and wrapped it. Her blood was glowing blue, not red. She was not just any alien. As he looked closer, he saw symbols on her armor, royal symbols. He had seen them once on a data chip long ago. Only high-class alien officers wore those. And yet, here she was, alone, falling from the sky. Hours passed. Jalen sat beside her, watching her breathe. When she finally opened her eyes again, she didn't speak at first. She looked around the small shelter. Then she looked at him, long and deep, like she had known him her whole life. "You don't remember me?" she said softly. He stared at her. "Should I?" She nodded slowly. "They wiped your memories. They made you forget." Jalen felt a chill run through him. "Who did?" She tried to sit up, but pain made her gasp. He helped her gently. Her fingers touched his arm, and he felt something strange, like energy, or a memory trying to come back. "You were supposed to be dead," she said, "but I kept watching, just in case." "What are you talking about?" Jalen asked. She smiled sadly. "You were part of the plan, and then you disappeared. They said you were lost forever, but I never stopped searching." Jalen stood up, backing away a little. "Who are you?" he asked. She looked at him for a long time. "My name is Kaylee," she said, "and I came back for you." Before he could speak, a sharp sound echoed outside the shelter. A whirring noise. Jalen quickly turned off the solar light and grabbed a small weapon from the wall. Kaylee tried to rise again, her breath sharp. "They followed me," she said. "They'll find us soon." Jalen looked at her. "Why are they after you?" he asked. She looked into his eyes. "Because I broke the law to protect you," she said, "and now they want us both dead." The shelter shook slightly from distant footsteps above. In that moment, Jalen realized something. He didn't know who she really was. He didn't know what memories were hidden deep inside him. But he knew one thing. Everything was about to change. And it all started the moment she collapsed into his arms. Strangers from the stars. But she knows his past. The night was silent again. But Jalen couldn't sleep. He sat in the corner of his small shelter, holding a rusted metal rod like a weapon, eyes locked on the entrance. Outside, the strange footsteps had vanished, but his heart still beat fast. Next to him, Kaylee was lying on the old mattress, her body weak, her breath shallow. Her glowing blue blood had stopped flowing for now, but her skin looked pale and cold. She wasn't just some soldier. She knew things. Impossible things. Jalen stared at her, thinking about the moment she whispered his name. He had never told anyone his real name in years, not out loud, and the things she said when she woke up, they weren't guesses. She talked about his past like she had lived it with him. His scar from falling out of a tree when he was 6, the old lullaby his sister used to hum, even the wooden ring he wore around his neck, the one his parents gave him before they died. How could she know all of that? A quiet voice pulled him from his thoughts. "You used to laugh a lot," Kaylee said. Her eyes were half open, looking at him, like she was remembering something soft and far away. "You always made me laugh too, even when the tests hurt." Jalen froze. "Tests?" he asked slowly. Kaylee sat up a little, wincing from the pain, then looked at him carefully. "You don't remember, do you?" she said. He shook his head. She let out a small breath and looked down at her hands. "You were taken, Jalen. When you were just a child, they called it the hybrid program. You and a few others, they said you had something rare, something in your blood, something they needed." Jalen frowned. "Who are they?" "The Vayari Council," she said. "My people." Jalen felt like the air had been sucked from the room. The Vayari were one of the alien races that led the war against humans. They were powerful, cold, and secretive. No one ever saw their true faces during the war. Their ships flew high above Earth's skies, giving orders from orbit, but they rarely stepped on the ground. And now this girl, Kaylee, claimed to be one of them? "Why would the Vayari care about me?" he asked. Kaylee touched the symbol on her armor. It glowed faintly. "Because your blood carries something ancient. It connects with our technology in a way no other human ever could. You are meant to be part of something greater." Jalen shook his head, confused. "Then why don't I remember anything?" "Because you escaped," Kaylee said. "When you were 10, you broke free from the lab. The project failed and they thought you were dead, but I knew better. I saw the signal, I followed it. And then I found you again. Today." Jalen stood up, pacing the small shelter. His mind raced. The broken memories, the dreams he always thought were just nightmares, the flashes of lights, the voices in the dark. Were they real? Were they pieces of that lost time? He turned back to her. "If all this is true," he said, "why didn't you find me sooner?" Kaylee looked away. "Because we weren't allowed to," she said. The moment the project failed, the council banned contact with Earth. They started a new war plan. I was reassigned, but I never stopped watching. I broke orders. I stole a ship, and they hunted me for it. Jalen stared at her, his voice low. "You risked your life." "For me," she nodded. "I had to." Silence filled the room again. Kaylee leaned back, exhausted. Jalen sat beside her slowly, trying to piece together the truth. He looked at her and asked, "You said my sister, was she part of the project too?" Kaylee closed her eyes for a moment. Then she nodded. "Yes. But they kept you two apart. I never saw her face, only her code name, Subject 9. Jalen felt something break inside his chest. All this time he thought his sister had been taken by raiders. He thought she was dead. But now he knew. She was out there. Maybe still alive. Maybe waiting for him. Then Kaylee spoke again, her voice barely a whisper. "But you have to understand something, Jalen. If they know you're alive, they will come for you. And not just to capture you." He looked at her, confused. "What do they want?" Kaylee turned to him, her eyes glowing faintly in the dark. "They want to turn you into a weapon," she said. "And if they can't, they'll make sure you never breathe again." Outside, the wind howled again, but inside that small shelter, Jalen realized his world had just changed forever, and somewhere in that change, he might find the truth about who he really was. Hunted by both sides, and the human is the key. The sky turned red as morning light pushed through the smoke above, but the new day brought no peace. Instead, it brought the sound of engines, quiet at first, then louder. Jalen stepped outside, the shelter climbing to the surface with a rusted pair of binoculars. What he saw made his stomach twist. 3 ships, small, fast, and sharp like knives in the air. They weren't human designs, and they weren't friendly. They circled the ruined battlefield slowly like wolves waiting for a weakness. Their scanners passed over the area again and again, sweeping everything with a dull green light. They were searching for something. They were searching for her. Jalen climbed back down quickly and shut the door. Kaylee was already awake, sitting up, holding her side with one arm. She looked pale, but her eyes were sharp. "They're here," he said. She didn't even ask who. "How many?" she asked. 3 ships, Jalen replied. "But more could follow." She nodded. "We don't have much time." Jalen knelt beside her. "Why are they hunting you so hard?" She looked at him, pain behind her voice. "Because I took something from them. Something they can't let go." "What?" Kaylee hesitated. Then she reached into her armor and pulled out a small cube, metallic, glowing faintly with moving patterns inside. She placed it gently into Jalen's hand. It felt warm, like it was alive. "This holds your original DNA sequence," she said, "the one they modified during the experiments." Jalen looked at the cube, confused. "Why would they care about this?" Kaylee's voice was quiet. "Because your blood was a key, a living command code that could activate the ancient tech, buried in the Veari core world. And they thought you were a failure, but your sequence still works." Jalen stood up slowly, holding the cube like it might burn him. "So, I'm some kind of switch?" Kaylee shook her head. "You're more than that. You're the last key. Without you, they can't control the old systems. They can't restart their dying empire, and now with this cube, even the rebels want you." He stared at her. "Rebels?" "Yes," she said. "Not all Veari agree with the council. Some want to destroy the old systems. Some want to use you for power. And others want you dead just to make sure no one else wins." Jalen paced across the floor, the truth crashing into him like a storm. He wasn't just a scavenger. He wasn't just a forgotten boy from a ruined world. He was a target. And worse, he was the prize. "So what do we do?" he asked. Kaylee pushed herself to her feet, wobbling slightly. "We run." "To where?" She looked him in the eye. "To a place where they can't track you. There's an old relay station deep in the Obsidian Cliffs. Hidden tech there can block scans, but it's far." "How far?" 5 days on foot." Jalen blinked. "With you in this condition?" Kaylee gave a weak smile. "We don't have a choice." Suddenly a sound thundered above, a sharp blast. The ground shook. Jalen ran to the door and opened it just enough to peek outside. A scout drone was landing. Sleek and black, it hovered just above the sand. It scanned the ground with a red beam, moving slowly toward their bunker. Jalen closed, the door quietly, heart pounding. "They're here." Kaylee reached into her belt and pulled out a small blade. It crackled with energy. She handed it to Jalen. "Take this. If they find us, don't let them take you." He looked at her, shocked. "What about you?" "I'll buy you time," she said. He shook his head. "No, we go together. Or not at all." She looked at him for a long moment. Then slowly she nodded. Together they opened the back hatch of the shelter, a narrow tunnel Jalen had dug years ago for emergencies. They crawled through the dark, through dust and stone, the sound of the drone growing louder behind them. As they emerged into a canyon outside the ruins, the wind hit them hard. Jalen helped Kaylee up. They ran. But Jalen's mind was no longer just on survival. He thought about the cube in his pocket. He thought about the fire in Kaylee's eyes. And he thought about what it meant to carry something so powerful in his blood, something empires were willing to kill for. He didn't ask to be important. He just wanted the truth. And now, the truth was chasing him across the galaxy. Betrayal in her tears, and his forgotten memories. The sun burned low in the sky as Jalen and Kaylee moved through the broken cliffs, their bodies aching from hours of running and crawling. Each breath came heavy, each step slower. The ground was cracked and sharp, the air dry as ash. This place had once been a mining zone, long before the war. Now it was just dust and silence, the perfect hiding place. But Jalen knew the quiet wouldn't last. They took shelter in an old drilling station, half buried by a landslide. Rusted machines stood frozen like ghosts. Jalen helped Kaylee sit down against a wall. Her skin had lost its glow. Her eyes were half-lidded, barely able to focus. "You need rest," he said. Kaylee gave him a tired smile. "No time." "We have to make time," Jalen replied, voice sharp. "You're bleeding again." She touched her side. Blue liquid coated her fingers. She wiped it away like it didn't matter. Then slowly she looked up at him and said something strange. "I can show you what they took." Jalen blinked. "What?" "Your memories," she whispered. "I have a way to unlock them. Not all, but enough." He stared at her. Part of him wanted to say no, afraid of what he might find. But the other part, the bigger part, needed answers. For years he had lived with dreams that didn't feel like dreams. Flashes of strange halls, voices without faces, pain that came from nowhere. He nodded. Kaylee pulled a thin wire from her wrist guard. It was old Vayari tech, black and smooth like silk. She pressed one end to her temple and held the other out to Jalen. "Place it just above your heart," she said. He did, and the moment the wire touched his chest, the world cracked open. Jalen gasped. Everything went white. Then, he was no longer in the ruined station. He stood in a bright, cold chamber. Alien walls pulsed with light. Tall figures in silver robes circled him, speaking in a language he didn't know, yet somehow understood. Voice echoed, "Subject 5, stable, genetic activation successful." He turned and saw himself, smaller, younger, 10 years old, strapped to a chair, screaming. The lights dimmed, a door opened, and in walked her Kaylee, but younger too, her hair tied in a different way, her eyes full of fear. "Don't hurt him," she shouted. "He's just a child." "You were told not to speak," a tall Vayari snapped. Kaylee rushed forward, holding his hand. The small Jalen stopped crying. He looked at her with eyes full of trust. "I'll protect you," she whispered. "I promise." Then the memory ended. Jalen stumbled back into his own body, the wire dropping from his chest. He was shaking. Kaylee looked pale and distant, but her eyes were wet with tears. "You were always there," he said quietly. She nodded. "They didn't want me to be. I was just a watcher, nothing more. But you were more than a mission to me." Jalen sat beside her, mind spinning. "Why? Why did you care?" Her lips trembled. "Because you made me feel something I wasn't allowed to feel. When you smiled, when you asked me if the stars had names, I realized something. I wasn't just studying a subject, I was falling in love with one." Silence filled the room. Jalen didn't know what to say. Then Kaylee broke it, her voice shaking. "I betrayed them for you," she whispered. "I sent the signal that helped you escape. And because of that, they erased the other children. Your sister, she was one of them." Jalen's blood turned cold. "What?" Kaylee looked away. "They said it was a cleanup. No traces. But I saw the records. Your sister, Subject 9, she tried to fight back. She vanished during the purge. No body was ever found." Jalen stood slowly. His hands were clenched, jaw tight. "You knew," he said. All this time, you knew what happened. Kaylee nodded, tears running down her cheek. I didn't want to break you. He turned away, his heart pounding. For years he had lived, with guilt, thinking he had abandoned her. Now he learned the truth. She might still be alive, or she might have died trying to save him, and the one person he trusted had held it back. A noise outside shattered the moment. Engines. Kaylee tried to stand but fell back. Jalen grabbed his weapon. His mind was chaos, but his body moved on instinct. He didn't know what to believe anymore. But one thing was clear. He was done running. Death squad inbound. And a heartbroken choice. The ground trembled as the first blast shook the canyon walls. Dust rained from the ceiling of the old drilling station. Metal beams groaned under the pressure, and broken glass danced across the floor. Jalen grabbed Kaylee and pulled her close behind a rusted column. "They've found us," he whispered. Kaylee nodded weakly, her skin pale, her body shivering. The energy blade she once held so steady now trembled in her hand. Through a cracked window, Jalen could see them, 5 figures in dark exosuits moving like shadows across the broken landscape. Their helmets glowed with red slits. Each one carried a long plasma rifle. They didn't look like scouts. They looked like executioners. "Death Squad," Kaylee said with a trembling voice. "They won't speak. They don't take prisoners. They erase evidence." Jalen's breath slowed as he looked at her. "Meaning us." She didn't answer. She didn't need to. He looked around the room for anything useful. Nothing but broken tools, rusted panels, and dust. His eyes landed on the fusion canister behind an old power core, leaking but still active. It could be a trap, or a last resort. Then he turned to Kaylee. "You said the obsidian cliffs can block scans, right?" She nodded. "But we'll never reach them in time." "You won't," Jalen said. "But I will make sure you do." Kaylee frowned, confused. "What do you mean?" He placed a small comm pin in her hand. "This still connects to my drone bike. It's hidden in the eastern pass. It can carry 1 passenger at high speed. Use it. Get to the cliffs." Kaylee's voice cracked. "What about you?" "I'll buy you time," he said. She grabbed his arm, eyes wide with fear and pain. "No, you don't understand. They want you. They'll kill me. But if they capture you, then I'll make sure they don't," Jalen said, cutting her off. He knelt beside her, both of them hidden in shadow now. The footsteps of the soldiers were growing louder, crunching on gravel, slow and careful. They were closing in. Jalen touched her cheek gently. "Listen to me," he said. "You gave me back my memories. You gave me the truth. Now let me give you a future." Kaylee's eyes filled with tears. "You're not just a key, Jalen, you're more. You're the reason I broke everything." He leaned closer. "Then live for that reason. Find out if my sister's alive. Stop them from turning people like us into weapons. Promise me." She nodded slowly, her hand clutching his like she couldn't let go. Jalen rose quietly and moved to the far side of the station, pulling an old metal door aside to make noise. The sound echoed down the tunnel and the death squad turned. He was now their target. He ran. The shots came fast, red beams slicing through the walls behind him. Sparks flew. Jalen darted between broken tanks and pipes, firing back with short bursts. He wasn't trying to kill them. He was trying to lead them away. He turned on the fusion canister's override switch. A timer blinked to life. Duro 30. Jalen ducked into another room and triggered an old mining lift. The metal cage rose with a groan, taking him to the upper ridge. He could see the black figures still following, fast and silent, but they didn't know about the canister. 15. At the ridge, Jalen turned and aimed at the squad. "Come on then," he whispered. 05. They raised their rifles. The explosion ripped the sky apart. A ball of white fire swallowed the ridge. Rock cracked and metal screamed. The force of it threw Jalen backwards, slamming him into a wall. Everything went black. When he woke, his body ached everywhere. The station below was gone, just fire and smoke. And the death squad. No sign of them. He coughed and tried to move. His arm was burned, his side bleeding. But he smiled through the pain, because in the far distance, he saw a shape moving fast across the desert. A tiny black dot racing toward the cliffs. She had made it. Kaylee was alive. And now she carried the truth, and his hope, into the unknown. As for Jalen, he didn't know how much longer he'd last. But for now, he had done what he promised. He had given her a chance. The final beacon, and the message meant to erase Earth Jalen drifted in and out of darkness. His body was broken, bruised, burned, and bloodied. His side screamed with pain, and every breath was like dragging sand through glass. But still, he crawled. Rocks scraped his knees as he dragged himself along the canyon wall, one hand clutching a small power cell, the other gripping the cube Kaylee had given him, the one carrying the truth of his blood. The explosion had destroyed the death squad. But it hadn't ended the mission. Somewhere deep inside him, Jalen knew something bigger was coming. Then he saw it. Hidden behind a collapsed wall of stone and twisted metal, the signal tower stood, quiet, ancient, and humming faintly with power. Its base was cracked, its top nearly swallowed by the cliffs. But it still lived. Still waited. Kaylee had mentioned it once in passing in one of her half-conscious moments. If they can't capture you, they'll activate the final beacon. It'll send a purge signal to the Council's core fleet. A purge signal, not a rescue dot, a message to erase Earth, to cleanse all traces of the failed hybrid project. Jalen, Kaylee, his sister, and every human involved. No trials, no proof, just fire and silence. And now, he was lying at its base. He dragged himself to the console. It shimmered with alien symbols that pulsed as he approached. The beacon recognized him. His blood. His code. His fingers trembled as he pulled himself upright, leaning on the console, staring into the screen. A single message blinked. Ready. For command. Purge or preservation. Jalen let out a dry laugh. Some choice. He could walk away. Maybe live a little longer. Let someone else fight. But he remembered Kaylee's face full of tears when she said she fell in love with him. He remembered his sister's laughter, now echoing from a past too far to touch. He remembered how many had died to bring him here. He pressed his thumb into the activation pad. A sharp sting and the console drew blood. His blood. The machine came alive. But then, something went wrong. The screen glitched. The symbols shifted. The purge signal had already started. A red countdown appeared. Euro 245. Jalen's heart froze. He had triggered the sequence by touching the panel. But now to stop it, to reverse the purge, he had to complete the process. The machine wanted more of him, not just blood. It wanted access. It wanted his life. His hands shook as the system requested one last command. Inject core. Signature to override. He looked at the interface. It required a full neural link, a connection that would burn his brain and possibly shut down his heart. There was no guarantee he'd survive. But if he didn't, Earth would die. He sat back against the console and stared at the sky. Smoke, trailing across the stars. For a moment he closed his eyes. Then he thought of Kaylee's voice in the shelter. Your life could rebuild worlds. He opened his eyes. Then let it save this one, he said quietly. Jalen reached behind his neck, pulled the wire from his own comm implant, the one Kaylee had helped reactivate, and connected it to the beacon. The machine hummed louder, almost as if excited. Light surged. Heat burned through the metal. The countdown kept ticking. 30. His vision blurred. His skin felt like it was boiling from the inside. His memories, all of them, came rushing back. Every face, every moment, every scream. He saw Kaylee again, younger, smiling as she taught him names of stars. He saw his sister, laughing, then crying, then reaching for him in a cold white room. 15. Jalen's heart raced. His head throbbed. His fingers began to twitch uncontrollably. And then, the console stopped. Purge canceled. Override accepted. The tower fell silent, and Jalen collapsed. His body dropped hard to the floor, unmoving. For a while there was nothing but the quiet hiss of wind. Then, a slow breath. His chest rose, and the beacon, once red, now glowed a soft blue. In that moment, the Empire's message was broken. Earth had been spared, not by ships or armies, but by the choice of one broken human who refused to let the past repeat. She buried her face in his chest and whispered, "You chose us all." The wind carried a strange silence now, not the kind that follows death, but the kind that follows something sacred, something final. The purge beacon's glow had faded into a soft, pulsing blue, like a heartbeat slowing to rest. Jalen lay still on the rocky floor beside it, his face bruised, lips cracked, but chest barely rising and falling. He had survived, just barely. His fingers twitched weakly. One eye fluttered open. The world above him spun like a slow carousel. A voice called his name. At first he thought it was just another memory echoing in his mind, but then he heard it again. Louder, closer. "Jalen." He turned his head. Kaylee was there, limping, covered in dirt and blood, but alive. Her hair blew wild in the wind and her armor was half burned. One hand held the signal jammer she must have grabbed from the cliffs. She dropped it as she ran to him, falling to her knees beside his body. Tears poured from her eyes as she touched his face. "Jalen. No, please. Open your eyes." He blinked slowly. "You made it," he whispered. She let out a broken laugh. "You stupid, stubborn human. You really stayed behind." His lips curved into a faint smile. "I told you. I'd buy you time." Then she wrapped her arms around him and pulled him against her, resting her head on his chest like she had done it 1,000 times before. Her body shook from quiet sobs. "You didn't just save me," she whispered. "You saved all of us." He breathed in, painfully, and let it out. "Wasn't about saving a planet." She looked up at him. He met her eyes. "It was about saving you." Her lips trembled and she kissed his forehead gently, like a silent thank you for every broken piece of herself that he had picked up and carried forward. They sat there in the silence, the boy who had nothing, and the girl who had given everything, to find him again. After a while, Kaylee helped him up. He leaned on her shoulder as they moved away from the tower, the canyon behind them echoing with memories. Above, the stars returned one by one, twinkling like they hadn't in years. "What now?" Jalen asked. Kaylee looked to the horizon. "There's still a war coming. The council won't stop. They'll know the beacon was shut down. Then we fight," he said. She gave him a sideways glance. "You're barely walking. Doesn't mean I'm done," he said with a smirk. Kaylee laughed, a soft, real laugh that echoed like music in the quiet night. They reached the top of the cliff just as the sun began to rise. Jalen looked back at the broken world behind. Them, the ruins, the silence, the old machines buried under sand, and then he looked ahead, where new air waited, where truth had a chance to grow. Kaylee squeezed his hand. "You were meant to be a weapon," she said. "And now?" he asked. "Now you're something better," she whispered. "You're the choice they never expected." He nodded. For the first time, Jalen felt something deep inside him shift. The broken memories no longer hurt. The missing pieces didn't feel empty anymore. They felt complete. Not because he had found every answer, but because he had chosen to be more than what they made him. And beside him, Kaylee stood, no longer a watcher, no longer a runaway, but something far more dangerous. A believer, they walked on, step by step, toward whatever future would come. Behind them, the beacon pulsed once more, a quiet signal, not of war or death, but of hope. for two lost souls who refused to become what the stars expected, and for the galaxy that would one day learn their names.